does self-love matter? This is the topic that we're exploring today on Awaken and Ascend with Tricia Livermore, who is on a mission to reignite humanity by guiding us towards inner peace, our wisdom, and open us up to that self-growth and self-discovery that we're all claiming that we want so that we can expand into the fullness of who we are and really become a full expression of that. So we're going to be delving into that today. And I'm Jennifer Regular, your host of Awaken and Ascend. And Trish, I am so delighted that you're here joining us as a guest today and giving us this topic on self-love, because it's not something we often really talk about, or we might be even shy. So, it's kind of nice to hear that when people are listening behind the screen, to delve into this topic maybe a little bit deeper and to take something away from that makes them more confident in being able to engage in acts of self-love. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm curious though, what actually got you started on this path, and what I love your bigger picture view of reigniting humanity. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. It really started many years ago in my corporate role, in which I was part of an executive leadership program, and I was in the pilot group, and it was really wonderful because we had these executive coaches who came from an improv and theater background, and they really taught us how to actively listen and be in presence with each other. And if you know anything about yes and in the improv space, it was really about how do we relate to each other and build off of what we're creating with each other instead of against each other. So it was a huge mind shift for me at that time. And what I really gained out of that program is relationships matter. It is so important to create the relationship you want. And that really started me on this journey of what is the relationship with others, and what's the relationship I want to have with myself. And all sorts of interesting, challenging things happened in my life. I was eventually laid off in that corporate role, which is what I wanted. I got divorced at the same exact time, which is what I wanted. I didn't want my autoimmune disease at the time. Yet it was all of those things that were happening were teaching me things that I needed to do for myself. I was doing so many things for everyone else and for every other aspect of my life, but I wasn't focused on what I wanted, what I needed. And so it really started this journey of self-healing and really ultimately learning how to love myself. And that's what started this whole journey.
Yeah, I love it, that thought of intentionally being in right relationship with ourselves, right? But first, even to get to know ourselves and kind of recover ourselves first before we can actually be ourselves, right? And there is that bit of recovery time. It's like we become someone else, or we become a role, or we become identified with some certain relationship and kind of lose the true essence of who we truly are. Have you found that too?
Oh, yes. I spent basically the first year after I was laid off and after my divorce is like, who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to become?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is the essence of who I am and how I want to show up on a daily basis, which means I had to forgive myself for the many, many things that I had done in my past to others, and forgive others for how they've treated me, so that I could really move forward in the present and into the future of, all right, this is who I want to be. And I think I landed on bringing humanity back to business because I was in complete burnout at the end of my career. It was a relatively toxic environment. And, looking back, I contributed to that toxicity, right? Because I wasn't in a healthy place myself. I didn't fully love myself and have the confidence of who I wanted to become. So I regretfully contributed to it. And on the same time, it was the right thing I needed to happen for me so that I could really learn that essence of who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What do I want to bring to the world? And, I think in business, we have this very old traditional model of how things work. And when we can put people in the forefront of all of those things and really care about the person, we can have a greater impact in every aspect of business.
Yeah, totally. And really, our business can be a vehicle for fulfilling our life purpose too, right?
Yeah.
And becoming a full expression of who we are through that, who we get to be through that. I have a similar experience where I was in a career for over 20 years and then realizing I didn't want to relate to people role to role anymore. I wanted to connect more soul to soul. So I
Yeah.
hear you talking about what feels like this heartfelt connection, right? Being present, actively listening to each other, and also noticing this huge shift because pretty much 99% of my guests have gone from corporate into their calling, right? And
Mhm.
you can see how this has shifted the whole society's paradigm of what it means to earn a living, right? How are we living our life? And not just about filling the void anymore, but rather finding fulfillment, right? And so recognizing what wasn't aligned anymore, right? Your marriage and your career, it just wasn't aligned anymore. And like you said, you wanted that to go, right? You wanted that to dissolve. And I find that there's that piece, and there's also the piece of wanting to embrace those possibilities. It's like, what now? Like, what's next? Who am I becoming? And, who am I outside of all of those things, all of those relationships? So the recovery and building yourself up to who you want to be for the future that you want to create. So I really commend you for that. And yeah, I know it's going to inspire a lot of people that are listening as well. What is it that you learned along your journey, Tricia, that you'd really like people to know as they go through this too?
think I think honestly the biggest key is it is a journey. It is a process of practice. If you've spent, a multitude of your life not necessarily loving yourself or being kind to yourself in your mind, it requires a lot of very conscious thought and being very self-aware in what's happening to you. I was one of those people that, I would react emotionally, and I would then feel a lot of shame for my reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So really understanding, like, what am I reacting to? What's underneath that reaction? What do I need to do to heal all of those things? And not spending a huge amount of time going backwards into the past. At least that's what I learned, is some of those things you do need to go into the past and identify and heal. But once you kind of get through some of those bigger things, then it's really about how do you maintain or keep a practice of noticing where you're at, how you're feeling, accepting that you're feeling upset for whatever the reason is, and being really conscious around what's coming up for you. Is a wound that you've had, or are you out of alignment? Are you not in alignment with who you want to be? Or, there's so many different aspects of it. Like, there is no one process that works for any one person. I've talked to so many different people, and we all have a very different process of how we heal and how do we learn to love ourselves. But really, it's about finding the things that resonate for you, taking action on those things, and then practicing them. It's like any habit, right? So, the best example is if you're going to work out and you want to build strength, the only way to build that muscle is to continuously work out, right? And that's the same thing with our brain, with our neuroplasticity and the way our brain functions. It's sort of, we've wired it to a particular response in a particular way. And in order to rewire that, it takes a lot of repetition and practicing and creating new habits, for all of those things to take place. And when I talk about this, it feels very generic and kind of high level, but really what it really comes down to is how can you be kind to yourself? How can you love yourself like you would love anyone else that you really extend a lot of love to? And I like to use my child, because when I think of my child, I love him unconditionally, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I would say to him, am I treating myself like that? Am I loving myself unconditionally? Am I giving myself grace and compassion and kindness and forgiveness for the mistakes that I've made, or the thoughts that I've had, or the reactions I've had? And continuing that process over and over and over, so that you get to this place where you're like, okay, I feel lighter. I've let those burdens of go. Like, I had a somatic therapy session once where I felt like I had this big, huge backpack on from my corporate days.
Mm-hmm.
And as we worked through that, I finally was able to release this backpack, all of this heavy weight that was on my shoulders, from those experiences. And I feel significantly lighter for those things. So really, it's just a matter of following your heart's desire and what it is that you need for you, and not what works for somebody else, but what works for you, and practicing those things.
Yeah. And so how can we make that matter more then, Trisha? Like, why does self-love really matter? Why is that so important? Why would we make so much time for that when like other people need us, obligations and expectations and relationships we might be in, or parenthood, as you spoke about? Why does self-love matter so much?
Yeah, because how we believe, how we really truly believe about ourselves is how we treat others. So
Mm,
oftentimes we are always projecting our true self to other people. And sometimes we mask it, right? And people feel that, they feel the mask.
mhm.
And when you're, the current, the normal saying is hurt people, and heal people, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
the more that you can develop the relationship with yourself, and your most highly connected place of your inner love, the more that you're going to treat others in the same way. So it's really important to put yourself first, love yourself first, care for yourself first, and then as an extension, you're going to have those same relationships with other people.
Yeah. So it's to make self-love, making that matter makes all your relationships matter even more, right?
Yes.
And has more meaning and more purpose and more love and intimacy. And I love love as an acronym too that I use sometimes, is lots of vital energy, right? The LOVE is lots of vital energy. And I heard you talk about the lightness, like when you engage in those acts of self-love, when you really consistently become, it's a habit for you to engage in self-love practices, then you feel lighter. You feel more vital. You feel like you have lots of energy, and that energy radiates, right? Because you're happy, you're joyful, you're light, and that affects everyone around you. It affects everything you do. It even affects the food that you're cooking for your loved ones or for yourself, even. It all goes into that. It's that energy. And then we have enough energy for our relationships and when we get home from work to take care of the kids and so on. So, yeah, I can really see how, love can impact in such powerful and profound ways, right? And I love this talk of a journey of self discovery. In my book that I think was published about 10 years ago now, it was Embrace Your Power, a healing journal of self discovery. And it was all these journaling prompts and really a pilgrimage to the heart in healing that relationship with yourself. And now just released, we're both in this co authored book of The Ultimate Guide to Leaving a Legacy. And like 22 of us had come together with these powerful lessons from our own lives, from the stories, our personal stories and what we gleaned from those experiences, what we learned along the way, the blessings, the lessons, the insights that we gained, that's really empowered the kind of work that we're putting out into the world now. And so, we got to put in there a little bit about our story and the different tips that really support people with soul aligned businesses and leadership, and who just need some motivation to be able to leave some kind of legacy. And I talk in there about being a living legacy, right? And leading with passion. Because the way I see passion, when you break up the word, it's pass I on. That I being your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And I love your story about getting to really know yourself so well and really step into and embody the kind of person that you came here to be and do what you came here to do. So, can you share a little bit more about your story and some of the things that you share in your chapter, Tricia, in the book?
Yeah, I do actually talk about my journey in my corporate space in the book, and and also the relationships I've had with family members and things like that, and the choices that I've made. So I think definitely go check out the book and read it. And at the end, what I really have done is identified kind of the major things that people can take action on to help them really find the tools to get towards self-love. Again, like it's a practice, it's a journey. And you said something earlier that I would love to touch on as well, is the lots of vital energy is the
Yeah.
love acronym.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important for people to realize is that we're energetic beings at the core of everything. And so wherever we're vibrating energetically, we are going to attract the exact same thing. So if we're in a place of distress and anxiety and all of those things, we're quite likely going to attract that in our lives. And when you can move yourself up the ladder and have a slightly higher vibrational level, then you're going to start attracting those things. So we create our reality in that sense. I don't really talk about that too much in my chapter, but it's really what I do provide is kind of like sharing why relationships matter. What are the things that you need to focus on for yourself in order to have those better relationships with others? How do you uncover your authentic self, like understanding your top values and how your values help inform your decision making, as well as like making friends with your ego, right? Like, I, I don't know about you, but like when people talk about ego, it's always in the negative. And I really had to make friends with my ego and take his hand. I named him. And I share that in my chapter about like how do you do that? Like what are the things that you can do to like take his hand, have a conversation with him, go to tea with him. And then really having a lot of trust in the universe, trusting that what you're putting out there as a vibration is what you're attracting, and being really hyper aware of how that is, how that works. And then, my legacy is to be able to have others feel some sense of love, whether it's by me or from me or through our conversation, they have some sense of love. And that's what the legacy I want to create for myself, that in every relationship that I have with others. So seeking like an unconditional love as your North Star in every moment. I don't think you can go wrong if that's your intention.
I love that. I love that so much. And so, where would people even start then on their self love journey?
Yeah, I think self-awareness is really key. You had mentioned journal prompts. So in a lot of my work with my clients, I provide them journal prompts. So depending on what we're doing and what they're trying to solve for, I will provide them, here's some things that you might want to consider journaling. And I also journaling can be in paper or it can be verbal, right? Like you can get your voice recorder out and journal that way. It really depends on the person and what helps them. But I have found that journaling, whether it's verbal or written, is extremely necessary to just let it be. So when you get angry, I did this last week. I was really angry about something. And so I opened up my voice recorder and I just went on a rant. I let it all out, I vented it, and I accepted this is where I was at. And then I kind of looked at like, okay, where's this coming from? What's out of alignment with where I want to be? What are my top values? And how am I How am I feeling in, different than my top values? And it really helped me see, okay, I'm a natural nonconformist. And this thing I was listening to was all about being a slave to conformity. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so not in alignment with who I am. And that's why I was really angry. And then what do I want to do about it? What do I want to do differently about it? I'm not going to change them. Like, I'm not going to change the system. That's not my intention. My intention is, how do I want to react differently going forward? And how do I want to show up in the way that I want to show up that's authentic for me? So and I'm giving kind of all of these examples so that people can have a sense that there is no one right way to become self-aware, but really just starting to pay attention and notice. I do have a freebie that if anybody's listening, it's called the Curious Observer exercise, where it really helps you identify, like, what are your thoughts on a daily basis. For a small period of time, you sort of track your thoughts. There's no judgment around it, but then it helps you become more aware of where your thoughts are leaning. And then I give you some exercises on how to kind of calm your nervous system so that you can get back into a relaxed state versus a flight or fright state. So yeah, there's a variety of different ways in which people can learn that self-love, and really it's up to you to decide what resonates with you, and finding somebody who has the intention of wanting to support you in your own journey.
Beautiful. I love that. So what if people need a little bit of coaching, a little bit of help with that? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. You can definitely find me at my website, Soul, businessadvisor.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under Tricia Livermore. You can email me, Tricia, Tricia, at soulbusinessadvisor.com. Yeah, and so I have individual coaching as well as group coaching. So I'm going to be starting a spiritual life development group. So I'm just finally getting certified in my social therapeutic coaching. And so going
Wow,
to be offering,
congratulations.
thank you. So I'm going to be
Yeah.
offering some group coaching soon, and mostly in the spiritual space, like, because there's a lot of people who feel very spiritual and they don't really have a community or a group where they can share their thoughts, their feelings without any judgment, right? There's no
Yeah,
judgment.
right.
So being in community with others that are on that personal growth journey, and we all get stuck sometimes, and how do we get unstuck in support of one another? So I'm definitely going to be offering that really soon.
Oh, that's beautiful. Fantastic. We'll have the uh, links, all the links that are to your website and to that freebie, to the book that we are talking about, and of course, my information there too. And if you look in the show notes, everyone that's tuning in right now, you'll find a little bit more about Tricia, what she stands for, and how to be able to connect with her as well. Thank you so much for everything that you share, Tricia. It's just been amazing, really inspiring. I love how you've embodied everything that you're sharing with us as well, just that authenticity and just genuine ability to connect with people, that heartfelt connection that you talk about, helping us tap into our inner wisdom for self-discovery and personal growth. And I wonder if there is anything else that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and having this conversation. I think it's really important for people to understand that, this is a journey. There's no goal line here,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So I think for us women who tend to be perfectionists, we feel like there's a goal line, which is a very masculine energy system, and there's nothing wrong with having a goal. But when it comes to self-love, it's a process,
Mm-hmm.
and really allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to enjoy the journey through the process.
Thank you. Thank you. And with hearing you say that, it just feels like it softens the edges too, to tend to ourselves with tenderness rather than tension, trying to meet that gold line or some version of perfectionism, and just, settle into who we are, just be ourselves and and let that shine, soften those edges. I love everything that you've shared with us, Tricia. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I really appreciate each and every one of you that have been tuning in to Awaken and Ascend. We love having you here every week at 3 p.m. Pacific. Of course, if that timeline doesn't work for you, the video's out there. And make sure you give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this too. And we'd love to hear your comments. Until next time, we'll see you, and blessings on your journey.